Hello my dear children. Today we are going to learn about Form 1 English language. There are more things in heaven and earth. You are not alone. SOW reference Skills in Nonfiction pages 4 to 9. Lesson objectives. Enhancing students with reading comprehension strategies and skills that facilitates understanding and analyzing of written text effectively and easily. Further, developing the students for basic skills listening, speaking, reading and writing. Elaboration of the lesson. The important things that we can learn from this lesson are some of the facts that have been confirmed by experiment on demonic forces and ghosts. It also lists places where ghosts can be seen, how they occur, and the steps they take to conduct such surveys. Children, please listen to the text. You are not alone. Here is the beginning of an article from the internet to explain what to do if you find you are not alone. With more and more people believing in ghosts and many of those having paranormal problems with the same, a logical and orderly investigation must be performed to properly explore all areas of the phenomenon, whether they be natural or supernatural explanations. By the time the victims of the paranormal attack finally attacked a professional psychic or paranormal researcher, they have usually exhausted all other natural means at their disposal. They have on occasions actually done their own form of research themselves, only to find that it doesn't fit in with the natural order of things. They then need to turn to someone who has the knowledge, experience and expertise necessary to discern what exactly is going on and to also put a stop to the phenomenon as a whole. Most areas seem to begin to produce phenomena after a sudden, violent, emotional, tragic or traumatic death, such as a murder, suicide or tragic accident like a car crash or plane crash. The current theory is that because of the way that the people met their demise, an energy is released at that location and can be seen, felt, smelled or sensed in some way by people passing through the area. At other times, a location where a person might have spent a great deal of their time, such as a house, restaurant, church or tavern, could become haunted by the deceased simply because the ghost might come back to check in once in a while to see loved ones or the structure itself. If the structure is changed in some manner, it seems to agitate the ghost because they would like it to remain as it was while they were alive. Sometimes internal construction or remodeling is attempted, such as the removal of a stairway. Then occupants or visitors to the area can see an apparition, apparently floating in the air. Actually, they aren't. They are simply climbing that non-existent stairway that they remembered while alive, even though it no longer exists. Ghosts are not harmful and should not be feared if encountered in a house or structure. I have never come across a case yet of a spirit or ghost actually causing physical harm to a living person. There are reports of broken arms and legs being caused by ghosts, but on further investigation of the report, the person upon seeing the spectre becomes so frightened that he or she simply fell down a flight of stairs and broke their appendages. The ghost only caused the accident indirectly and did not push the person down the stairs. However, some people still refuse to live with invisible house guests and need and want help in identifying and removal of the ghosts. This is the where ghost hunters come into the picture. The first step in all investigations usually is taken by placing a phone call. This could be the actual party itself or a friend calling on behalf of the plagued family or individual. During an initial telephone interview, a ghost hunter will attempt to screen the case and receive as much detailed information concerning the phenomenon as possible without asking any leading questions until the end of the session. This ensures that the individual being interviewed will not embellish the case or add anything that didn't actually occur. Important information would include name, full address, religion, material status, children and ages. When did the phenomenon start, any certain rooms or times of day, and how the phenomenon was observed. Much of the above is extremely important as it could actually classify the case into one of several categories: hauntings, poltergeist or natural explanations. If there are children around when it happens, perhaps the poltergeist phenomenon is the answer. If, however, visual appearances are seen, verbal communication heard, or the person actually recognizes the ghost, then a haunting might be in effect. A ghost hunter also tries to ascertain the emotional state of the family as to whether they are under any undue stress or strain either at work or at home, which could contribute to the ongoing phenomenon. Past investigations prior to the hunter's involvement, if any, are considered very important, as they would like to have the opportunity of talking with the previous team of investigators. And if a priest or clergy was called in to bless the house, this is another important question, as it shows the religious state of mind of the individuals and also whether it helped or hurt as far as frequency of the events reported. Other phenomena sometimes encountered could be musical sounds, teleportation, and movement of objects. These could be the result of either a haunting or poltergeist activity, as all have been recorded in both types of cases. After all this information is compiled, the hunter then asks several important questions. First of all, does a family or individual want the entity to leave? This may sound a bit crazy, but we've run across cases where the people are more curious than scared and only want our verification that something is there and don't want it removed or stopped. This again gives us a look into the current state of mind of the individual or family. Another question would be concerning other witnesses to the phenomenon. Hunters are trying at this point to rule out hallucinations, drug or alcohol use or dreams. Whether or not other people in the immediate area have seen the same or similar occurrence is absolutely vital. It still could be some form of collective hallucination of mass hypnosis, but it is much more unlikely. After the initial telephone interview is concluded, a ghost hunter would then contact other members of his or her research team and set up a possible time and a course of action. Never are these members informed of a scenario prior to the arrival on the scene. That way there are no preconceived notions as to what might be going on. They are brought in ice cold. The research team is simply areas there as a data gathering team and to rule out possible natural explanations. If and when a psychic or clairvoyant is employed, a trusted one will be agreed upon by all members and the client themselves. This is usually a last-ditch effort for a possible identification of the entity itself. Right, children, it's a long comprehension passage, so you no need to be worried about that. So I have made the elaboration of the lesson, so you can read this one more time and please do your comprehension text level work. Comprehension, page number 6. What sort of people call ghost hunters? What sort of people professional psychic or paranormal researchers who search about ghosts. So this is the answer for the first one. So by reading the rest of the extract, you can answer the questions, children. So next one, vocabulary. So there are some difficult words. These are the meanings of the words: paranormal, abnormal, investigation, exploration, phenomenon, occurrence, supernatural, metaphysical, psychic, psychological, demise, death, poltergeists, ghost, discern, make out, appendages, attachments, embellish, decorate, teleportation, transfer, compiled, assembled, encountered, met, ascertain, discover, agitate, churn. So these are the vocabulary, children. By using vocabulary words, you can find the answers easily. So next we are going to move to the next slide. Sentence level work, grammar and punctuation. Verbs. What are the verbs? Verbs are usually action words. Example, ghosts do not push people downstairs. So what is the verb there? Push. So push is a present tense verb. A verb can also be a being word. Example, ghosts are not harmful. Are is a being word. Verbs come in families. The family name is called the infinitive. Example, to climb, to contact, to be, like that. The members of a verb family are the different tenses of a verb: present tense, past tense, future tense. Present tense, I climb. Past tense, I climbed. Future tense, I shall climb. I am climbing. Past tense, I was climbing. Future tense, you can fill the grid. I shall climb. I have climbed. I had climbed. Like that, these are past tense verbs. The words am, was, have, had and shall are auxiliary verbs. They help to indicate the tense of the main verb. By using this text, you can do your work, children. Please move to the other slide. Thank you, children. This is the end of your lesson. Have a good day. Bye-bye.